So hello everyone, welcome on Xstream.tv. We are here in Bahrain visiting Trust Re's head office. And we have the pleasure today of having a lively discussion with Mr. Mark BUISSERET, who is Planning and Business Development Officer within Trust Re. Thank you so much, Mark, for agreeing to do this interview.
No, thank you very much for coming to Bahrain.
Okay, Mark, so maybe just a little bit in the beginning you can explain what is your daily role within Trust Re, a company which recently celebrated its 25th anniversary on the market?
Okay, yes. My daily roles. Well, I'm responsible for one of the pillars of Trust Re. So the company is organized into three separate pillars. And the one I'm responsible or I oversee is planning and business development. So that encompasses actuarial, risk management, IT, corporate communications, and the planning and performance management departments. So it's quite an eclectic mix. It's not just one specific discipline. It's a variety of different disciplines. But I would say that it's perhaps one of the more, let's say, technical areas, especially with the actuarial and the risk management side. But we have very capable people who head up each of those departments. So I'm not hands-on at all. I don't get involved on the day-to-day running of those departments. I used to in the actuarial side, but not anymore. But so therefore I sort of more look at it from let's say the higher level and sort of how all of these departments, they integrate together and also integrate with the rest of the organization as well.
I see. But as a reinsurance company based in Bahrain, you are probably and most likely subject to the local regulations, local rules and regulations. On the risk management side, what is the difference between these local rules and regulations and the one existing in Europe? I know that you are coming from the UK. You have been active in various international reinsurance companies, SCOR being one of them. Could you be able to make a comparison between the regulations which exist in continental Europe and here?
Well, as you're probably aware, in Europe they're going through the Solvency II exercise, which should be kicking off 1st of January 2016. Everything going well. Bahrain is regulated by the CBB, which has a reputation in the region of being one of the more developed regulators and certainly more forward-looking, perhaps, than some of the others. They haven't adopted Solvency II, but I think it's something that they will probably look to do gradually over the next few years. It's very similar in regulation to how the UK was regulated maybe sort of 5 years ago or something like that. So when it comes to, as I mentioned, it comes to regulation, they are sort of, I would say, quite strict in terms of, especially compared to the region itself. Very transparent. I would also recommend that, when it comes to the regulators, they do, they're part of what's called the International Association of Insurance Supervisors, yes, IAIS is a bit of a tongue twister. So they do attend all of these events, and therefore they do have a wide knowledge of what is going on in the environment outside of the Middle East and the Gulf regions. I think recently they've introduced a financial conditions report as well, which is sort of like a stepping stone, if you like, towards Solvency II. There is an ORSA. I don't know if you're aware of that, within Solvency II, which is a big topic at the moment. It's part of the Pillar 3. But I think you'll see that they will get there eventually. It's just perhaps they're taking smaller steps. So it's almost seeing what is working within other frameworks and trying to apply that rather than just adopting straight away everything. And then we have to imagine that there is, or realize that there is a gap between capabilities sometimes in this region and what we have in Europe. So we do attract obviously expats from outside of Bahrain, but obviously experiences sometimes can be an issue for people based in Bahrain itself. So there is sometimes a sort of a knowledge gap, and so therefore the companies that are based here might struggle a little bit more at the beginning to adopt some of these regulations than, say, some of the European counterparts. But as I said, it's a learning curve. That's why you take it gradually, step by step, and sort of slowly introduce it rather than suddenly throw it all in as they are. Okay, Solvency II hasn't been thrown in straight away. It's something that's evolved gradually over a period of time. Obviously it's been delayed as well year on year. So I think you'll see Bahrain gradually adopt something closer to Solvency II over the next maybe 5 years or something like that.
Which is obviously good news for your clients, right?
Yes, I think it's something. It gives them comfort. It gives them comfort that Bahrain has a regulatory authority which is very much in line with what they're used to, especially if they come from the European countries. Same with Asia; they have their own regulations as well, which are also moving forward in a very similar fashion to Solvency II. So I think there's gradually a unification of the regulatory authorities throughout sort of Europe, Middle East, and Asia as well.
What is the main cultural difference between SCOR, for example, because you have previously been with SCOR, so a traditional European reinsurance company, and Trust Re, for example?
Okay. Well, I worked for SCOR in London, so London was a subsidiary office of SCOR, and it was a relatively small operation, although I did travel to Paris as well to see colleagues there in La Défense in Paris. I would say that one of the largest differences is this is a family-run organization, so it's owned by a family, and those family values do transfer or translate down into the staff as well. So rather than being run as a corporation or as a public company, it still has those family values and ethics within the company, and people have that feeling that they can speak with the CEO, for example, and have a chat with him whenever they like. It doesn't matter who they are or where they work. So it's very much an open door policy, and it's very much encouraged, and I think people appreciate that as well. Other simple things, when you come here, I remember on one of my very first weeks, I think I was here, the number of cakes that were brought in when it's someone's birthday or a child was born or something like this. They like to celebrate, and and it's that kind of mentality. Everyone says hello in the morning. This is quite common in continental Europe, but in the UK, for example, in the mornings, you don't tend to meet and greet people on a daily basis. You sort of either get into the lift or get into the office, and you might say good morning to your colleague who sits next door. But here, everybody would say good morning to you, irrespective of the fact if they know you or not, or if you see them on a daily basis. So it's more of a friendly atmosphere, I would say.
How friendly is the rating services? Trust Re has recently been awarded a rating upgrade, if I may say so. How friendly was that in relationship with your clients?
Well, our rating, we have been an A- rated reinsurer with AM Best since 2006. And S&P, we were rated BBB plus since, 2008. So it wasn't, I wouldn't say, a shock to the clients. I think it was something that probably people were expecting. But we had withdrawn the rating back in 2011 from S&P, primarily because when you have two ratings, an A- with AM Best and BBB plus with S&P, sometimes clients in certain regions would take the lower of the two ratings. And there is often this perception that a B rating, doesn't matter if it's BBB plus or whatever, is obviously a lot worse than an A- rating. Now, this is the perception. Statistically, no, it's not the case. The probability of default, let's say over a short period of time for a BBB plus company isn't that much more than on an A- rated company. So really, I think it's one of these sort of perceptions that the reinsurance purchasers of companies have that, oh no, we must have an A- rated company. So I don't think that's always necessary. But saying that, you would obviously always want the A- rather than the BBB plus. So I think once we received the A- rating from S&P, it did help in certain markets with certain clients who tend sometimes to prefer the S&P rating to the AM Best rating. There are certain people who do look at the S&P rating more favorably than the AM Best rating. So it has helped. But I wouldn't say it's necessarily helped in terms of us writing more business than we wanted. No, we have a very strict business plan. So that business plan is set for 3 years, and it's annually reviewed, but our underwriters know that this is the amount of business that we want to write in this particular territory for this particular class, and the rating just enabled them to be more selective in terms of the risk that they were writing. So they would maybe get more offers, but they wouldn't necessarily write the business. It just enables them, as I mentioned, just to make a, let's say, to be more sort of selective in terms of the type of business they want to write, and perhaps not write certain business which maybe they would have written before, but this time round they can sort of say write for a higher margin than they would have originally.
But speaking about strategy, where do you exactly see the company in 25 years from now?
Well, 25 years is a long time. We do look for 10 years, so we would have a 10-year horizon in terms of strategy. We would like, in 10 years, we'll be $1 billion in terms of premium income. Rating-wise, we would like to be an A-rated reinsurer, so to be from A- to A. In terms of geographical scope, we don't have any specific intentions of expanding our geographical scope over the next period of 10 years. Now, this could change, but at this point we are writing in Central Eastern Europe, we write in the CIS countries, we write in Africa, we write in Asia, Middle East. We don't write in North America, South America, and we don't write in Japan and Australia. So that's very strict, and the reasons for that are because these are the markets we know. We have direct insurance operations in some of these areas, especially in the Middle East, and we get information from our insurance companies. So we know the clients, we know the people, we know the culture, and our underwriters, they are very much underwrite on the road, or on the ground. They don't sit at a desk and underwrite. They go out and they do their underwriting, not signing or putting their stamp down on the road, but meeting the people, going and seeing them, seeing what they are, who they are, how they do business, how's their risk management. And so they can come back having this picture in their mind and make a more informed decision while they're in either Cyprus or in Malaysia or in Bahrain. And I think, you see, if we expanded our geographical scope wider than it is currently, we would lose that, because we wouldn't have that expertise. And I think this is part of our business model. This is something that we rely on to make better decisions, better underwriting decisions, and to better serve the needs of our customers as well.
Thank you for that. And one final question: how do you see the business that Trust Re has in the context of the new geopolitical landscape at the moment? I'm speaking about sanctions, which are economical sanctions, which are being imposed on Russia. I'm speaking about the decrease in oil prices and so on and so forth. Has there been any change?
It's a very good question, yes. With sanctions, when it comes to sanctions is something that, especially in this part of the world, you have to be particularly sensitive about. So we do have a very active compliance department who are constantly looking and reviewing changes as they happen. And at this point, it is very, very dynamic. Things are changing almost daily. When it comes to countries like Iran, okay, it's a shut and closed case at this point in time. Maybe it will open up later on in the future, but that's something that we don't look at. When it comes to Russia, for example, these are on an individual basis. So we have to check very specifically who is sanctioned, under what sanctions, because there are, as I'm sure you're aware, you have UN sanctions, you have OFAC sanctions. We have, obviously, we're regulated by the CBB. They have their views as well. So what we have EU sanctions as well. We make sure that we are up to date with what business that we're writing, and we have to review it daily. Now, in terms of, you mentioned, okay, that was the sanctions. Now, oil prices. Oil prices, we write a lot of energy business. So we have construction business as well. obviously, with a depression in the oil price, it means that there isn't as much money to invest in infrastructure and growth and development of these projects. So yes, we have definitely, there has been a reduction in the amount of projects that are on the table. Now, who knows what, in a year, in 2 years' time, maybe the oil price will recover and these things will come back onto the table. But definitely there has been a reduction in the number of projects that are out there at the moment in terms of, especially in the oil and energy sector.
Okay, Mark, thank you for that very informative view upon Trust 3 and its development, and looking forward to the future.
Thanks very much, Alexandra.